Good evening, everybody. How are you? It's Sunday. It's me, Comic Crack, and I'm doing this early tonight. I'm ready. I'm ready to chat. Um, a bunch of stuff to talk about. We had, I guess, first of all, we had our Sunday hangout over on Rasa's channel. So if you're not subscribed to La Rasa, make sure you check her out. Subscribe to her channel, LAHRASA. Um, and go and watch that if you want and see what we were chatting about this week. We had a bunch of people in the chat room, which was great as always. So let's kind of get into stuff. So the first thing I wanted to talk about tonight is movies and maybe a tiny bit of music as well too. We had our local kind of art house theater, Cinematheque, had a touring retrospective of one of my favorite Japanese directors from the 50s, 60s, 70s, Seijun Suzuki or Suzuki Seijun. They played 5 of his movies. The final one was today. I couldn't make it today though, but they played 2 last night and then 3 the night before. So in the past couple of days, my son and I went and we saw all 5 of those, and it was pretty fantastic. There was only one movie that I've seen before. I'm not sure exactly how many movies he's had in his career. I want to say somewhere around the 60 films. He is dead a long time now, I think. Let's see. He would have been 100 this year. But I think he died a good maybe 10 years ago. Let's see. 2000, oh, maybe not. So 2017. So 6 years ago now is when he's died. He's kind of infamous. He worked for Nikatsu Film Studios and he was a kind of B movie director. So in the days of a couple of movies playing it in a theater, when you'd go to see, you'd pay for one ticket and see a couple of movies. He was the intro movie. So they just kind of threw cash and threw a script at him because you're just supposed to make something. You're the lead into kind of the movie that's hopefully drawing the people in. He started experimenting with films. He started experimenting with these kind of generic scripts that he would get, chopping them up. His editing got more bizarre and bizarre as it went, and his choices of shots and things really following almost this non-linear kind of path until it led to my personal favorite, Branded to Kill, which was his final movie for Nikatsu Studios, and they fired his ass afterwards. They were just growing increasingly frustrated with his movie output, and the lack of kind of, nobody can understand what the hell you're doing. Nobody knows what these are about. They're really confusing. We just want you to make a movie. Why can't you just make a movie? And then he sort of got blacklisted, I guess, for about a good 10 years. Branded to Kill was 1967. The last one we saw last night was from 1977, and it was for his first film back into the industry. I believe there was a lawsuit in that 10 years as well, probably something to do with his contract. I don't know the details of that, but he's now kind of heralded as kind of the leader of what is sort of known as like the Japanese New Wave. His focus was kind of delinquent movies, youth delinquent movies, and all sorts of stuff. But he covered a lot of different genres. As kind of a studio director, you're sort of just given a script and you just make the movie. You don't necessarily have, or I would assume the majority of the directors who are like not big names, you don't really have a choice of kind of picking what kind of movie you're going to do. You sort of just get your assignment and you go and do it. So he was able to kind of create these movies that are kind of unbelievable. One of the ones that screened, it was the first one that screened last night, is another classic of his, Tokyo Drifter from 1966. This I've seen, geez, I don't know, 10 times up to this point. Same with Branded to Kill. I've seen them both a whole bunch of times. The amazing thing about this retrospective was that it was 35 millimeter prints that were touring the parts of the country, and Winnipeg was one of the few stops in Canada that received these films, which was fantastic. So our Cinematheque, their 35 millimeter projector was out of commission, so they spent a bunch of time to repair it and get everything working so they could play these movies. That said, there was a number of kind of hiccups during each of the screenings. Nothing substantial. It's just the way when you're using this technology that you're not used to running in this day and age, and it's stuff that's old and has to be fixed and maintained. And it's been kind of collecting mothballs for a long time. So that was also super cool. It was really exciting for my son as well, who's never seen a 35 millimeter, like a piece of film ever going to the theater. So that was pretty exciting for him. And he had a lot to say about the textures and the quality of it, because it's obviously, it's a lot more analog. It's got a lot more life to it. It's not this kind of crisp. When you change the reels, there's these jumps, all of these artifacts that are just incredible, right? As most of us and most of you watching this are well aware of. Daryl D, how you doing, man? Nice to see you. So it was a good experience overall. I'll just kind of share with you a couple of the screens here. Share screen. We'll have a look at a couple of things. So this is the website. No thanks. The Japan Foundation of New York. I think our prints came from the Japan Foundation of Toronto. So Seijun Suzuki Touring Retrospective, Post-War Japanese Cinema. There's a book. This is it here by William Carroll from Columbia University Press. I don't know when this book came out, 2022, so late last year. I didn't realize this was out. I'm going to keep my eyes out for it for sure. So if you're interested in kind of film history, or if you're interested in Japanese film, or if you know Suzuki Seijun, I would suggest checking this out for sure. And if you don't know his films, I would strongly recommend you check something out. For those of you maybe who have access to Criterion Channel or something like that, you can find stuff there. Arrow Video has put out stuff in the past as well too. I'll show you those afterwards, actually. Well worth checking out. And honestly, if you haven't seen him, if you haven't seen any of his movies, I would just say start at kind of like his peak in my estimation. I haven't seen a lot of his stuff past 1977, but Tokyo Drifter or Branded to Kill are fantastic places to start. That's where I started. I started with Branded to Kill, actually, was the very first thing. So, so this tour, October 3rd to March 3rd. Where are we now? We're 2023. So these are some of the dates in the States here that have already passed. Chicago, Los Angeles, New York, Rochester, etc. And then here's the tour, the Cross Canada tour here. So here's the Japan Foundation of Toronto. Current stop, Winnipeg Cinematheque. Fantastic. So Winnipeg, Vancouver, Montreal, and Toronto and Edmonton. It goes to show what kind of people we have working in our kind of art house film, that they were able to catch this and bring it to us. Really, really proud of them for putting this together. Very, very cool event. It's a very small theater. I think the theater holds approximately 100 people. It wasn't packed by any stretch. I think Tokyo Drifter was the one they had the most, the biggest audience for, and that was maybe 60, 70 people-ish, somewhere around there, maybe 60 people. So we saw Satan's Town from 1956. I think it was his third film. They showed this Love Letter from 1959, which was like a 40-minute short. So these two played first. They were kind of back to back, like a double feature. And then afterwards, we saw one that kind of honestly blew my mind, and I would put it right up there with his best. Carmen from Kawachi from 1966. Tokyo Drifter is also from 1966. This was an incredible film, this Carmen from Kawachi. I loved this one a lot. He's got a very unique way of kind of telling a story. It's sort of centered around this woman who's dealing with some trauma, and kind of how she was coping with it, and her place in the world as a woman, and her in these different relationships that she never really gets comfortable with. And it leaves off with just I think an amazing image of her, just kind of that really put a point on it. I read a review online that it was she had gone to confront her past. She did not confront anything. She learned to cope with it for a brief moment, but she by no stretch kind of confronted or any sort of movement ahead from kind of facing some of her trauma and sort of coming back as this other woman, supposedly in the eyes of her mother and sister. It was just really, really well done. And I think one of the biggest things was the way that he treats kind of some of this subject matter, the way that he treats some stuff that in another director's hands would be very visceral and maybe very violent and very gory. He doesn't do that at all. So it really kind of lends itself to not interpretation, because it's fairly clear as to what's going on, but it's just a unique way, more of like an art house type of way to deal with some of these subjects. So I was very, very impressed by this one. I don't know if it has a DVD or Blu-ray release, but I'm going to be keeping an eye out for that because I would love to see it again. And then last night we saw Tokyo Drifter. Like I said, kind of the classic. It's in color. And then afterwards, one that I'm still a little puzzled. This was his first movie back, A Tale of Sorrow and Sadness, about this female golfer who becomes kind of a model and a spokesperson, and kind of works in advertising and things, and what that does to her career and the way people perceive her. It feels like Suzuki was maybe exercising some demons that he had with kind of the arts and film and fame and all of that type of community. Ends on some really powerful images, I think, like that really drive the message home a little bit. It was a little disjointed, though. It felt like kind of a first movie back. There were some passages that were kind of really dull. And I don't know if the whole thing worked incredibly well. There was moments that were sheer brilliant and absolutely Suzuki's style and his voice. But I just don't know if it worked 100% as a whole piece. And then today, the one that I missed was Kageroza from 1981. I've never seen this one either, so I'm curious as to what that's about. I'm hoping I get a chance to see it at some point. So when I came home, I started digging some stuff. I obviously looked into Carmen from Kawachi. I was looking for the composer. One of the things I did last night was I started to download some music. I found a soundtrack from Tokyo Drifter. It sounds like it's just the music lifted straight from the movie. I was hoping to find if there was any sort of official soundtrack, so I could hear some of the pieces of music in their entirety, but it looks like that doesn't necessarily exist. Or if it does, it's nothing that I was able to find. What else do we got here that I had open? Oh, not that one. So the Spiders in Tokyo Drifter, there's one song that's listed as from the band The Spiders when I put the album on. And this is the band here from Japan. And I guess they were huge at the time. So in 1966, which is why they were featured in these movies, because I think they feature this Fury 66 in a couple of Suzuki's movies and probably in a lot of Japanese movies at the time. I think the Spiders had a movie about them. They sort of looked like Beatles / Monkeys type of clones, but they played sort of garage rock. And they did a bunch of stuff from, I haven't heard everything yet, but I've heard a bunch of their tracks at this point. Pretty damn good, really of the time. This song, I guess, was so popular it appears like on 3 or 4 of their albums. And from what I've heard 3 different versions of this one song. So I guess that was kind of their hit, the big one for them, from their album number 1. And there's a picture of the fellas there. I think from what I was reading, a bunch of these guys went into entertainment in some form or another, whether it was working behind the scenes in music and TV production. I don't know if any of them became actors. I don't recognize any of their faces because I thought maybe they would have had a cameo in one of the movies that we saw or in Tokyo Drifter, but I don't recognize any of them. So yeah, I've got this bookmarked because I wouldn't mind getting some of this stuff. There's a couple for sale right now from $25 Canadian on good old Discogs. And then Kaburagi Hajime is the guy who did the soundtrack, who's credited with the soundtrack to Tokyo Drifter and a bunch of other pinky violence movies from Japan at the time, which was kind of a genre of kind of these tough girl movies. Also incredible stuff there. And I also found some kind of Nikatsu compilations that were released. This is Kabuura Hijime as well. This is what they say to go and refer to when you're looking for him. But all of them have incredible covers. I was able to find one or two of these online. Joe Shishido there, the infamous Joe Shishido with his botched surgery where he got his cheeks he got cheek implants that he later in life took out and left pretty big scars on his face. So it's been an incredible weekend so far of listening or watching these movies and listening to some of this music. Really been enjoying it. Hello, Miss So, how are you? Really fantastic. I'm really glad it came through town. So I was telling my son, I'm like, if we want to keep extending this this film fest, this Suzuki Film Fest, I've got a bunch. A lot of these I've watched. There's a couple of this on a box set here that I haven't seen. Youth of the Beast, another Criterion release. This one from 1963. Fighting Elegy, another one of my favorites. Really, really great. He appears in from Kawachi, the girl from Kawachi there. Story of a Prostitute, another one. I thought I had Gates of Flesh as well too, but I guess not. And then he had a movie that appears on this Nikatsu Noir box set. I think it was Take Aim at the Police Van, possibly, is his. But it's a 5 film set that Criterion has done a number of that are really, really great. And then the 2 box sets that are available from Arrow Video are these the Early Years Volume 1 and Volume 2. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 movies. 5 movies on each box set, so a good solid 10 movies. I don't know if I've ever finished watching all of these. I've had these for quite a few years. Comes with a good booklet, and Arrow Video always does an amazing job. So I'm feeling like it's going to be a Suzuki fest for the next couple of months, as maybe I just watch all of these movies again. Hopefully my son will be into watching some of those with me as well too. So great stuff. So that's it for that. Let's get into what I read this week. I guess we'll start out here. I'll talk a little, some of the books I didn't talk about in any great detail this afternoon. And I'll probably at least open those up and let you know how they were and show you some of the interiors. To start with, I don't have a big pull list, as I've talked about before, so sometimes I'll go and I'll just kind of scour the shelves. I don't always pick up something extra when I go to Galaxy, but I like to at least look at what's out there and kind of flip through some comics. Believe it or not, I got myself a couple of DC books, and it was 100% the covers that attracted me. So I guess this variant cover was recalled because it got printed wrong, which makes sense because it feels like there's something lacking there for sure. But they have these blacklight variants. This is from the Night Terrors event that's going on right now, that's kind of crossing a bunch of different titles at DC. The main book, though, has Deadman and Sandman, the Golden Age Sandman, or Zombie Sandman, I think is what it is. And then here's the blacklight cover that really caught my eye. So this is issue 1 and 2. There's only going to be 4 issues. I think an issue is coming out every other week, so it's a bi-weekly book. And then, like I said, it's going through like Superman, Green Lantern, there's a Zatanna. I'm sure that there's a Batman, Black Adam, Poison Ivy, Ravager, the Joker, Shazam, the Flash, etc., etc., etc. There's your schedule there of the usual cross-company, cross-title event book. But like I said, I'm just going to be getting the main title. I might check out the Zatanna book. That comes out August 8th, so that comes out this week. Although it says Zatanna number 2. So I'm kind of confused by that. So maybe this is the final month. So maybe it was a 2-month event then. So I'll kind of keep an eye open for it and maybe have a flip through it. But and then there's going to be a one-shot at the end here as well too. Night Terrors, Night's End. I love Deadman. One of the characters that I first started reading when I was picking up DC books. Deadman, the Spectre, Shade the Changing Man. I've talked about them a million times at this point. So when I saw that this was a story focusing on Deadman, he's the main character. He's inhabiting Bruce Wayne's body, or Batman's body, as he's trying to solve this mystery of almost everybody on the planet being asleep and kind of trapped in their nightmares. The art looked pretty good when I was going through, but honestly, it was the cover and the fact that it was Deadman in the book that really appealed to me. The story is halfway decent. I don't know if it's anything to write home about, but I mean, what do you expect when you're dealing with comics in general, but superhero books specifically? There's only going to be limiting things that they can do. I don't know if this is a first appearance of this villain. I don't even remember the villain's name. Reminds me a lot of Nightmare from the Doctor Strange books. The ability to kind of put people to sleep and trap them in their nightmares. Rasa was saying that they're from the first issue that she read. There seemed to be some similarities to like the Sandman character as well too. So, yeah, it's interesting enough. It's kept my interest. And there's only 4 issues. There's the Zatanna with the guy from Doom Patrol. It's kept my interest enough to want to kind of read the 4. If it was going to be something that was maybe going 6 or 8 or 12, I don't know if I'd be on board. I might have just bought this issue purely for the cover. They're $5.99 books, or at least these variants are. Maybe the main title, if you don't get one of the extra bonus covers, is $4.99, but I'm not 100% sure. So not a bad read by any stretch, but the covers are what really drew me into this book. I've already looked at them under Blacklight. If you're on Twitter, you can go to my Twitter profile and see the photos of that stuff. Let's put these over here. Don't Spit in the Wind. It was a 4-issue miniseries that has wrapped up now. It was another one that I just picked up off the shelf on a whim because I flipped through the first issue and I really liked the look of the book. I feel like I need to read all 4 issues again. When I've read the previous, I feel like I've just sort of flipped through the pages and read the story, but I didn't really digest anything because as I was reading this 4th issue, I was kind of confused as to how we got to where we are in this final issue. So I clearly didn't retain anything from the previous books, which isn't a criticism of the book. It's maybe more criticism of me trying to focus on stuff during the summer months or whatever, and maybe not being 100% into the story. But again, another one that I know Jared Osborne was picking this up too. And I think for the same reason that I was, that it's only 4 issues. So why not give it a try? It was appealing enough that I don't mind giving it a shot for 4 issues. Like I said, the art is kind of what impressed me the most about this. It has kind of a unique kind of look to it, a little rough around the edges. Reminds me of somebody, but I just can't put my finger on it. These drawings really remind me of another artist, but I just can't put my finger on it. So I'd check out these creators again. This is Stefano Cardacelli and Dan Lee doing the book. Does Cardacelli? Yeah. Stefano is the writer and artist. Dan Lee is the colorist and the letterer. So a 4-issue series from Mad Cave. I don't know a ton about Mad Cave. I don't know if they put stuff out in collected editions and trades. But if you're into kind of indie books, especially modern indie books, and you find it for cheap, I wouldn't hesitate picking it up. Pretty neat looking book. Pretty cool stuff. I'll just show you the other covers because I don't know if I talked about issue 2 and 3 really on the channel, or if I did, not very much. There's number 3. And then there's number 2 there. And then that was the first issue there. Shaky Kane has made an appearance in the anthology Xeno. He's been around for a while, and he kind of pops his head above water every once in a while, doing like a variant cover or something. And he ended up in issue 1 of this new anthology from Oni. I think I said Image this afternoon. It's from Oni Press is what this anthology is from. So we had a story in the first one, and he did a cover for the first one as well too. I've got the Matt Lesniewski covers for 1 and 2 because he's a killer artist. I really, really dig his style. I follow him on Twitter as well. And he's got a beautiful style, and those covers are just killer. And I've seen the preview for the 3rd issue. I think there's only 3 issues of this one. I've seen the preview image on CLZ for the 3rd cover, and it looks like these 3 covers sort of have a little bit of a continuity and a story going on. So in this book, we have, is that the inside front cover, or are their pages sticking together? There we go. A story called Finale, written by Alex Segura and illustrated and lettered by Xander Cannon, who was doing that Giant Monsters book. I can't remember what it's called right now. David Lapham and Maria Lapham, illustrated by David Lapham. Free Hugs. Testimonial, art by Carson Thorne, and written by Hagai Pelevsky. B&B, written and illustrated by Alyssa Sala. And then a story called The People, written by Francois Vigneault and Artyom Trakhanov. Apologies if I'm butchering those names. So while I was reading this, I was thoroughly enjoying it. Can't tell you a goddamn thing about it now looking at it. I recognize the pages, I recognize the style, but it's one of those books where you just sort of read it. Oh, this one I do remember, though, this Free Hugs. This future where people are kind of heavily isolated from each other and have these relationships online, and never want to meet face to face. And this person completely panicking when all of a sudden somebody appears outside his pod wanting to come in, and he's not sure who she is, what her purpose is there. He feels like it might be somebody looking to kind of rob him or kill him or invade his space. So he's not sure what he should do. And I won't go any further than these pages to spoil it, but they have this little communication through the airlock window there as he's trying to figure out what to do and really struggling with it. Testimonial. Oh yeah, this is the Carson Thorne art one. Pretty good. I'll just show you these 2 pages here. Pretty good style in here. I like this sort of almost this graffiti style or stenciling style of faces here in the middle. It's this guy who has died. It's almost like a Outer Limits, Twilight Zone-ish kind of story now that I'm remembering it. This guy has died, and this company, this corporation, has brought him back to life. And he's doing this recorded piece telling how thrilled he is and how much he thanks them. Clearly, he's not doing so well. They brought him back to life basically so he can kind of keep working for their corporation. And I think the one of the other kind of final points was that he'll now live forever so he can serve them forever. This next story I won't really show you too much, but The People, this one was a beautifully illustrated one as well, where they find it's these group of there's not really a time period set, but they look like kind of prehistoric-ish, and they found this piece of technology on one of their hunts and kind of what that does to their community. Not a bad story, and beautiful style here. Really, really nice style. So it's a good little anthology, this Xeno. Like I said, I think it only goes 3 issues. Another one I'd suggest picking up for sure if you can afford it. What's the price on these ones? Oh yeah, $5.99 on these ones. So that seems to be a standard, although who knows if that's the variant cover price versus the regular cover. Who knows? Believe it or not, I've been sticking with Doctor Strange, issue 5 and issue 6. I'm a couple of months behind, so I was able to pick both of these up at once. I only make it to this galaxy maybe once a month, sometimes twice a month. For the most part, it's been less than stellar. I'm just such a fan of Doctor Strange, and I feel like I'm fixing for a little bit of Doctor Strange in my life. So for some reason, I've just always been able to afford to pick up an issue. I think they even put it on my pull box for me now, just to make sure that I get it. And I've kind of been enjoying it, kind of not. I really like the art. Jed MacKay, Jonathan Hickman does some writing in this particular issue, and then Juan Gideon is the artist there. So there's the credits there. So in the previous issue, we run into a character called General Strange, I think, right? Is that sorry, let me just see. Yeah, I think it's General Strange. Anyway, General Strange. So we get in this issue, we get the backstory of General Strange and how he came to be, as he kind of goes to serve the Vishanti in this War of the Seven Spheres. Is that what it's called? Yeah, the War of the Seven Spheres, Year Zero. Do I seem to remember that there was some War of the Seven Spheres sort of event in Marvel at some point? I don't really know. It's hard to keep up with all the events and things that have happened over the past handful of years, since I've been getting back into reading more Marvel comics. I do like the art style, though, and I think that's the thing that keeps bringing me back. But honestly, this was a very strong issue. I really enjoyed this issue. I kind of hope that they explore this world a little bit more, because in kind of Marvel style, or at least when I dip my toes back into the Marvel style, there's this not taking it seriously, which I'm fine with. I'm totally fine with. It's just not what I'm interested in reading personally. Some of the other issues have had some kind of gags and things like that, and just some, oh boy, look at us. Isn't this crazy? We're in the same room together. You tried to kill me. Ha ha ha. Like just nothing that really makes for interesting reading for me personally, just my own opinion. But this story took a little bit of a twist, getting a little bit of this history of the general here and how he relates to Doctor Strange and how all that came to pass. I really dug this issue. This was a page turner for sure. So a solid one. Not a book I'd recommend to anybody. I mean, if you know Marvel and if you're reading current Marvel and you know kind of the tone of some of the Marvel books and you're a fan of Doctor Strange, absolutely go for it. But I don't think it's something that you absolutely need to have. I'm sort of stuck now, and the way these series are going these days, I imagine it's going to go 10 issues, 12 issues and be done, and then they'll reboot with a number one. So I feel like my buy-in will be limited. I'm going to follow it at least to the end of this arc and see how I feel about it, which I imagine is only going to be another couple of issues. But we will see. This will be a very short one. This sucked. This was dull. I was going to pick up the first two issues. Again, it's that style of writing that's sort of this. It just doesn't work for me. It's just not my thing. It's not written for me, which is absolutely 100% fine. But I'm not going to waste my time with any of it. I'd pick this one up because Doctor Strange made an appearance in Clobber in Time, so I was really curious. Hello, Chris, Chaos and Comics. How you doing? And then because I got issue 3 and 4, I figured I may as well pick up the final issue, because then I was going to go back and pick up 1 and 2. I am absolutely not going to go pick up number 1 and 2. I will say this, though. The art by Steve Skroce is unbelievable. Really, really. I know this is a very unusual episode this week there, Chris. It's filled with like mainstream and books that you normally don't see on this channel. I feel like I'm you all of a sudden. I got some X-Men titles to talk about next. No, I don't. So this is the art here is incredible. The writing is just not my thing. It didn't do much for me. There's some really good pieces in here, including this. Galactus, the birth of Galactus. And it's one of those things where I needed to read a lot more to fully understand what's going on. But as I read the issue, I realized by the end of it that I'm just not interested in what went on to get us to this place. I just don't care. So this is as far as I go. I'm kind of glad that it's done. I guess if I see 1 and 2 in a cheap, like 50-cent bin or a dollar bin, I might pick it up just because the completist in me, but I'm not in any rush whatsoever to hurry out and grab those issues. Yeah, it is a great Galactus. Like, he's a hell of an artist. He's a hell of a good artist. I'll absolutely give him props on that. I mean, look at that cover. Look at that Doctor Strange. So good, man. Really, really cool. Shitty story, though. You've been canceled. Not you, but you. The royal you. Issue number 2. I read the preview for issue number 1 in a Mad Cave book, probably in Don't Spit in the Wind, actually, now that I'm thinking about it. And I was curious enough by that little sample to pick up issue number 1. By the end of issue number 1, I was kind of disappointed in the way that it goes. The guy that was doing the canceling has now been canceled. Wow, what a unique concept. Now everybody's out to get him, so the hunted becomes the hunter becomes the hunted. This second issue actually wasn't too bad. It's sort of, we find out that the system has been hacked, that it's a mistake, that that everything has been turned against him. I won't give you any spoilers. So we find that out, and now it's him he also finds that information out for himself, and he's now kind of chasing down the source of where this hacker lives. Another book where I'm really drawn to the style. I really like the way it looks. Very cartoony. Stuff like that is extremely cartoony. Just even those panels there, like, you can almost hear the cartoony sound effects with those punches and things, like Looney Tunes type of sound effects. Or here when he's cracking his knuckles and you just see his mouth and jaw. Okay, sounds good. Nice to see you. Yeah, so I'm on board again. I'm back to liking this. I'm curious enough where it's going to go that maybe there is some twists and turns coming. Not that a hacker hacking into the system isn't anything that's mind-blowing by any stretch, but I think it has room to be interesting, especially when this is kind of his guy that he's going to go to, who is his kind of tech bro, the man in the chair, the man behind the man, so to speak. Yeah, it's got that kind of stuff going for it too. It's a little bit rude. So yeah, there you go. So it's issue number 2. This is a mini as well too. Is it 5 issues, 6 issues? I don't know, but I'm digging it. So I'm on board with it. I think I added it to my pull list at yes, I did, because 204 has said that issue 3 has been delayed. It didn't make it in their shipment this week, so hopefully it shows up. It didn't make it last week. Hopefully it shows up this week. And then there's the cover to issue number 1. So good of a book, I had to put it in Mylar. It's because that's all that I had. Yeah, make that the thumbnail for sure. Yeah, I'll go back and I'll check it out. The man behind the man. Weird work. This is Shaky Kane. I meant to go to this after talking about Xeno, but it slipped my mind. Segways aren't my thing. Good book. Kind of a detective, hard-boiled detective type of story. I love Shaky Kane's art style. I'm not the biggest fan of his writing. This one kind of solves that problem because this guy Jordan Thomas is doing the writing on here. It's not writing that is changing the face of comics, but it's writing that I find easy to read and entertaining. And I think so far, he's a really good match for Shaky Kane's style, which is kind of bonkers, with his weird creatures, his weird characters, his often people with no irises, just white-eyed characters. Very, very cartoony, very, very graphic, really poppy colors. Yeah, this was good. I'm glad that I found out about this and gave it a shot. Very, very fun little read. Again, nothing to write home about, but not every comic has to be. So there you go on that one. So that just came out. I think that just came out this week. I'm not 100% sure, or maybe it was the week before. I don't know. But it's a new Cthulhu Hand. Luke, how the heck are you? Nice to see you. And last but absolutely not least, because it was, oh, actually, there's two more books. These last two books were kind of my favorite reads, but I'll save my favorite read to the very last one. We have finally, after a little bit of delay, quite a lot of delay, actually, so much delay that I was a bit nervous that maybe it had gone away before the final issue. This is Batman the Audio Adventures number 7. The final issue from what seems to be volume 1 or part 1. I don't know. I'm assuming that the next one they're going to go back to number 1 issue. I kind of hope they just go to number 8 and let's just kind of keep going and do some more stories. But you can't have everything. This has been an incredibly fun book. This kind of scratches that itch that the Adventures Continue didn't for me. The Adventures Continues, that first chapter started really strong and it quickly went downhill. It just kind of it was missing some of the magic from the Batman animated stuff. This one has that in spades. It has that sense of fun. It has that kind of audio drama type of flair to it. There's like 3 different storylines going on in here, which may sound insane, but actually it's really, really well written where you don't feel like you're missing anything. You get great images like that there. There's a real Darwin Cook Batman vibe to that. It's just really, it was a solid book. It's easily going to be one of my favorites of the year, I think. So Dennis McNicholas, who's the writer, I guess we found out this afternoon, thanks to the chat, that he used to be a writer on Saturday Night Live. Anthony Marquis and Jay Bone, pencilers, and then Jay Bone is the inker, and then, of course, the one and only Dave Stewart on colors. I won't tell you too much about this book since it's the final one, but when I've talked about this one over the past couple of months, if any of it appeals to you, if this art style appeals to you, I would not hesitate for a second to pick this book up for yourselves, because it's honestly really, really worth it. And if you can find them, each one has a Mike Allred variant cover. I think it's for $1 more. Yeah, $4.99 instead of $3.99. I know that I realize that's not always an easy sell for people, but considering how few books I have on a pull list, I don't mind kind of dropping that extra $1 for a snazzy Mike Allred cover. There's another one there for issue number 6. So such a good book. Very, very impressed. And like I said, it's really, really left open to easily doing some more. So I hope that it was popular enough for them that they're already working on a second volume or issue 8 or the second story arc or whatever. Whatever method it comes out, I'm sure I'll be there to pick them up. It feels like one of those books that I'm going to miss, because it was just really enjoyable to sit and read this when it came out. This was the only issue that was late from what I remember. I think all the other ones were pretty much right on schedule. So I'm not sure exactly what happened there on that last one. Sorry, excuse me. And now, last but definitely not least, Paul Pope, The Ballad of Dr. Richardson. I don't know if I haven't seen Gore Vidal in the chat, but if Gore Vidal is in the background there, Gore Vidal, do you know this book? And if you don't, you need to read this book. I think you would absolutely love this. I loved this book. This was a beautiful story that was legitimately touching by the end of it. So this one, I think I grabbed this one at the 204 Comics when they had their kind of yard sale where he was just clearing out books at $2 and $5. I don't remember if this was a $2 one or a $5 one. It was goddamn cheap. So it comes with 2, I guess, art cards by Paul Pope, signed on the back of them. I don't know if that's legitimately his signature or if that's printed on the card itself. I can't really tell, but that's nice to have that inside there. This is from 94. Yeah, 1994. From a company called Horse Press. I think AFPC was familiar with Horse Press. He had mentioned them. They did some of his earlier work. What the heck was that other one called? THB was one of the books that he's done, but there was another one that I'm just completely... Cinciatulo, that's the one. Here we go. Got some also available by Paul Pope. I think that all these were on Horse Press. Postcard set 94, an assortment of 6 full color. Okay, so this must be two of the prints from that set. So none of the other ones were inserted in this book, but anyway, it's early Paul Pope. I'm not an Uber fan. I really like his style. I haven't even come close to reading all of his stuff. He hasn't been on my radar in that kind of way. Just very familiar with his work and his style. I know that he eventually went into like fashion advertising, I think. Did he do some fashion art? The Kayfabe guys recently talked about Paul Pope, and the guest host, whose name I'm blanking on, that was sitting in for Jim Rugg, brought these, and also brought some big prints of Paul Pope's stuff, some of his advertising art. So this story is about a art history professor. Excuse me, still fighting off a bit of a cold. An art history professor, and kind of reaching a point in his life where he's obviously reflecting. He has the unfortunate luck of sort of eavesdropping on some of his other professor friends who are talking shit about him, saying he hasn't had anything published, saying that he's got some weird ideas about stuff and he's kind of useless and why is he even here, yada, yada, yada. So he's really kind of struggling with his lot at this certain point of his life, and trying to find something about his job that he does love. He feels like he doesn't have passion for much of anything, and sort of going through the motions of stuff as he's trying to connect with his students, the ones that he sees promise in. And we get these passages of him moving through the city that I think are just stunning. Yes, this is Paul Pope earlier, so he's a little rougher around the edges, maybe not as polished as what he comes into, but honestly, I love this style a hell of a lot. Apparently, Pope himself says that he doesn't like the style. I think it was Rick Ray was talking about that this afternoon in the chat of our hangout with Rasa there. But I love how he kind of carves out these shapes on the page. Really, really great. And it really feels, again, it's this ability to kind of make a world feel lived in. So he goes home to sort of wallow in his self-pity, and realizes he's just got to get the hell out of the house and go for a walk, do something to kind of bust himself out of the stupor. So on his trip around town, and again, we get more images of him just walking, these silent images of him just walking, which I love. Feels kind of Tamagotchi. Is that it? No, not Tamagotchi. What the hell was that? Jiro somebody or other. What the hell is his name? Taniguchi. The Taniguchi books, The Walking Man and stuff, where it's just these silent passages. He meets this trumpet player playing in the subway, and is kind of blown away by his music. He ends up meeting an ex-student on the train. She recognizes him. She was in his class a few years earlier, and she comes and sits and talks to him on the train. And they kind of strike up this conversation where she's kind of explaining what kind of things she's doing these days. She's creating this new instrument. She's really heavy into music and experimentation. It sounds to me like she's sort of more into the experimental and noise kind of scene. She invites him with her, and at first he says no, and the very last second he decides to take a jump and literally jumps off the train to chase her down. The important thing about this book that really worked for me was that this guy is never portrayed as some kind of old lecherous prick who's just kind of chasing her down because he wants to get in bed with her. It's clear that he's looking for something else. It's clear that he's thrilled about her life and her kind of diving into art and expressing herself, and maybe sort of living vicariously through her, because it's something that he feels like he wants to do, but he's sort of at this place where he's kind of stable. He's got a job. So I think his character is handled so well, because it doesn't come off, at least it didn't to me in the reading. Maybe it's quite possible that I missed something, but I never got the sense that he was just some creep. Other people around him in the story seem to think that he is. He's clearly attracted to her. There's no doubt about it. And she's clearly attracted to him. But it's not it's not presented that that's the main reason why they're getting together. He's experiencing things that she's doing as he ends up going around town with her. Yeah, and I won't really tell you too much past that. I was just left with a really nice feeling after reading this one. It felt like I could read a little bit more. I think it was almost the perfect kind of amount, though. It's one of those times where you're sort of really invested in the characters and you're really bought into the world, and it's really interesting and feels fleshed out, that I would love to read another book equal length. But I also feel like he just did a really good job of kind of compressing this story into one small volume, where almost having more might be too much, where it would start to lose something because it's just this one little piece. I think it's beautiful stuff. Yeah. Yeah, the art style is great, and the rough line doesn't bother me whatsoever. There's a little kind of post-credit scene as well too, that even that I could kind of do without. I like the way the main story just kind of ends off. Pope also has a couple of pages at the back here where he's talking about the ideas for the book. Honestly, I stopped reading it kind of a page into it. I don't know. I'm sometimes more from while it is incredibly interesting to hear writers and creatives talk about their work, not saying that it's not. A lot of the time I'm sort of more in the David Lynch camp. Like, I kind of, as much as I would love to hear them explain some of the stuff, I kind of don't want them to. If you want to talk about the time writing a book, but sometimes it comes off a little too much, like talking about the reasons for writing the book and what you were trying to do. It's just not something I was into, especially because I enjoyed the story so much and I had my own ideas about it. I'm not necessarily interested in hearing that maybe what I got from it wasn't what he was intending. I kind of like my impression of the book, and I kind of want to just leave it at that, right? So I don't know how easy or how difficult this is to find. I think it came into a second printing. This might be the second printing. I don't even know, but I'm pretty sure there was 2 printings of this book. Like I said, I'm not in tune enough with Paul Pope and his output to know if this is something that is out there in an abundance or not. I definitely know now that if I see anything else by him from this era, I'm picking it up without a second question. Just really, really loved that book. So that was called The Ballad of Dr. Richardson, if I didn't say it or if you missed the title there. So, and it's from Horse Press is what the place is called, which I've also never heard of. So I'll have to do some digging online for that. I think that is it. Yes, indeed. That is all. I haven't read it yet, but I did pick up Sacrificers, issue number 1, the new Rick Remender book. Rick Ray was also telling us that Tradd Moore's Doctor Strange Treasury book has come out. It wasn't at the shop when I went to pick up my book, so I'm going to have to contact them to see if it came out. Oftentimes, stuff gets delayed up here in Canada. There's been issues recently with shipping comics to here as well. There's been a number of times where the comic shop has just, the shipment was late by a day or 2. So that also might be the case. Because I want that book. I want to see it again. I want to read it again. A recollection by the creator of a book is better after years and years. Yeah, absolutely. And then, yes, Sacrificers looks great. I loved the Free Comic Book Day version. I was saying to Rasa, I'm also really happy to see that what we got on the free comic book day was just about half of this book here. Yeah, I think the page before the halfway mark of this first issue. So it's good to see that we still have a whole chunk of story that we didn't see in that free comic book day, because I know with some of them, they end up putting most of the first issue into that free comic book, where it's almost, why am I bothering to pick it up, the actual issue, just to get a couple more pages. But this is a hefty volume, so this is on my pull list. I'm holding off until Rasa gets her copy, so we can read it at the same time and talk about it, kind of both of us talk about it fresh. I'm pretty excited about it. I know she's super thrilled about it. And I'm sure there's a bunch of other people out there that are into Rick Remender that are looking forward to that book. So thanks very much, everybody, for hanging out. It was always good to see you. And I hope you have a good week. Later.